all the games I used to play in my younger, wilder days. The game of clubs and tees had never crossed my mind. But after some discussion with my closest, dearest friends, I decided that I'd give it.
Welcome in to another episode of the Turn Fantasy Golf Podcast, brought to you by Rotoballer.com. As always, I'm Andrew Putters with my partner in crime, Joe Nicely, lead golf editor up there at Rotoballer. Before we get into it, Joe, we're closing out the fall series. You got this week and next week. What we got to look forward to coming first year? We're going to have some big announcements from Rotoballer or what?
Yeah, man, we're always looking to find ways to improve our content, and hopefully come January, we'll be able to do just that. Really looking forward to next season. You can take advantage of next season right now. Head over to rotoballer.com, sign up for our PGA Premium Package using the promo code NICE, N-I-C-E. That'll get you that deal for less than $65, and that'll take you through all of next year up until the 2022 Tour Championship. Amazing articles over there, great contributors. Josh Bennett, Spencer Aguiar, myself, PGA DFS Research Station, ownership projections, anything you need over there. So we really hope you go check it out. Take advantage of this great deal right now.
There you go, folks. Rotoballer.com, best place in the world for your daily fantasy needs. Last week, Joe, the Worldwide Technology Championship at Mayakoba, whatever it is. However pronounce it, defending
Mexico.
champion. Yeah. the Mexico tournament. How's that? Successfully defending his title, Vic Hovland. Four-shot victory over Ortiz, and really held off JT as well after JT's horrific start on the front nine on Thursday. Interesting quote from the weekend. Victor did say that his chipping was really elite this weekend, which I thought was humorous, but really just a good player, and obviously plays well in golf courses where he's comfortable at, Joe. So any drawbacks from this week? I didn't get an opportunity to watch much of it just because we're full blown into football season, and it seems like if you watch a Tennessee football game, it lasts 6 hours now. So didn't get a chance to watch much golf this weekend, but. What do you got what did you take? Did you get a chance to watch any of it?
Watched a little bit, man. Honestly, not as much as I would like to. It was a really fun leaderboard, man. B-Hova, you know how we feel about him on this show. One of our favorites, just as a golfer and as a guy. Matty Wolfe was up there. The resurgence continues for him. JT was up there. A couple guys that we really liked last week, Aaron Wise, Taylor Gooch were up there, Joaquin Neiman. So just a really fun leaderboard, man. I actually wish I got to watch a little bit more of it than I did, but that's always a great tournament. It's kind of become a staple of the fall, the swing season, one of the better events each and every year, and the field only continues to get better and down in Mayakoba every year. So I'm going to always look forward to that one, kind of mark it on the calendar. And Holland, man, another big win, back-to-back, third win on the PGA Tour, past Palom Greens. Victor obviously loves them, does extremely well on those. We talked a little bit last week. It can kind of maybe help the guys that aren't the best putters in the world. But just a beautiful player from tee to green, man. That ball striking is always going to be there. Gives him a chance basically on any type of layout. Just hits the ball so straight. So really good to see him, man. One of our favorites on this show, and cool to see him get a win.
Big Hovland, 23 under, wins the Worldwide Technology Tournament down in Mexico. Moving on this week, formerly known as the Shell Houston Open, and then it was the Vivint Houston Open. Now it's moved on to the Hewlett Packard Enterprise Houston Open. It's a really, really old event on tour. It came around in 1946. They threatened to cancel it about 6 years ago, I think it was, and that's whenever they moved it over to the fall series. 2018, they moved it over to the fall swing at that point. They played it here. The tournament's held at Memorial Park in Houston, Texas. Par 70, 7,400 yards roughly. Bermuda greens throughout. This golf course was designed in 1936. And it's owned by the city of Houston. Me and Joe were talking before. We think this might be the only city-owned golf course that's a regular event on tour. I'm not positive about that, but we know it's one of the few public courses that the tour stops at yearly. Like I said, really got a lot of history surrounding this tournament, and that's why they moved it to the fall series instead of canceling it. It was renovated in 2019 by Tom Doak. Several changes throughout the golf course. I think this was the second year that they played it here. In recent time, they played it here many years ago, back in the 40s. So, this tournament back in the day was historically the week before the Masters, Joe, and they did that because of the lightning. They were able to have similar styles of green, similar speed of the green, like they do at Augusta, and that was a lot of people that chose to play here because of that. And I mean, really, you look at it, a lot of Americans have had a lot of success here, Joe, with a few international players. One note, 2020 winner, the only time here in recent time, Carlos Ortiz won. He came in second last week, so we're going to go ahead and highlight him as a hopeful for this week. But Joe, anything you want to talk about Memorial Park before we get into the slate?
Yeah, man, you mentioned kind of some of the history of it. Even though we've only got 1 year under our belt, feels like we're kind of very familiar with this event as a whole. You mentioned used to be always before the Masters, and actually last year's was also before the Masters because the Masters was in November because of COVID. And we actually see some there's actually some noticeable Masters crossover here, man. We saw DJ play really well here last year. Hideki Matsuyama play really well here last year. So, there's some similarities. One of the interesting things about this course, not a ton of bunkers, very few bunkers on this course, lots of runoffs around the green, lots of kind of slick slopes around the green. So there's some Augusta stuff going on there. And also, Andrew, one of the tougher courses that we've seen, I believe I seen earlier today, the fifth toughest non-major golf course on the schedule last year. The winning score, I believe, was 13 under. You mentioned Carlos Ortiz. So this is going to be a little tougher test for these guys than we've seen throughout the swing season. So it's going to be interesting, man. 5 par threes, 3 par fives, just a kind of a different layout. And I expect that it's going to challenge these guys a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, really, as I look at the leaderboard from 2021 last fall, which that's weird. It's because we're still in 2021. But if you look in the leaderboard from last year, you don't see really any trends. I don't really see, if I look down through his names, I don't really see players that have a lot of things in common up here at the top 20, Joe. Maybe iron play or approach looks to be possibly, but I mean, I see a good mix of bombers. I see a good mix of good putters. I see a good mix of tee to green. I don't really see a good mix of really great putting, Joe. So it's pretty interesting just looking at the course in general before we look at the slate.
Yeah. Statistically, I think long irons are going to be important statistically. Because this is a little bit tougher golf course, I kind of look for bogey avoidance. Carlos Ortiz won here last year. He led the field in scrambling. So maybe that's something we want to keep an eye on. Not a lot of times that's not something we weight a ton in DFS, because the thought process being if your guys are scrambling and they're not making birdies and you're not really trying to get them in your lineup. But on a tougher golf course like this, I think it will come into play a little bit this week. Maybe the most common thread that you see, AP, amongst those guys that played well here last year, just guys that historically have played well on tough golf courses, really. I think there's a little bit of PGA National, maybe a little bit of Copperhead course, some of the tougher Florida courses, maybe a little bit of Riviera, a course that plays fairly tough. Maybe there's a little crossover there. So I'm kind of looking – golf courses that traditionally play fairly tough that we regularly see on the schedule, kind of see if there's any crossover there. But really interesting, man. Interesting to dive into this one. And it's always fun when we see a course that's going to challenge these guys a little bit.
I agree, Joe. So interesting field this week. I wouldn't say it's not going to wow you with star power, but there's a lot of great solid players here at this event. So you might be able to find some decent value mid slate here. So let's jump right into it. 10,000 above: Hatton, Cam Smith, Wolfe, Finau, Sunjay, Scheffler, Sam Burns at the top at 11-1. If I'm going to bogey avoidance right off the top, I'm looking at T Hatton. I know he's not super long, so therefore he might have a little bit longer irons in than the rest of these guys. But I mean, him and Finau, to me, bogey avoidance is going to be pretty high, I'd imagine. I mean, Tony hits it so far. He's a really good long iron player, Joe. So that's the two guys I'm looking at in this range. Not really sure if I'm going to green light any of them. But I like those two in this group.
Yeah, totally fine with those guys, Andrew. Nothing at all wrong with those plays. A little concerned about Tony's form, not been great, but we've seen him go through little ruts and snap out of it. So you have to like his length on this golf course. I still get a little bit of sticker shock, man, seeing Sam Burns at the top of the salary scale, the only player above 11K this week. But it's just really tough to argue with him being up there. T7 on this course last year. The recent form's well documented. Had a win a few weeks ago at Sanderson. Played well in his follow-up at the Shriners. Had a top 5 at the CJ Cup. And man, just everything's clicking for this guy. We've been talking about him pretty much since we started doing this show, Andrew, that we think he's a future star, man. And he's really coming in his own really well right now. He's played well at if we talk about crossover courses, played well at Riviera, had a chance to win there earlier this year. Does have a win on the Copperhead course at the Valspar, has played well at PGA National. I mean, if we're just throwing out tough golf courses. So he's definitely got all the tools to play really well. Matt Wolfe is a guy that's opened some eyes during the swing season. His issues have been well documented over the past year. I'm a little concerned about the short game, but I mean, when you look back, this is a guy that's played really well in U.S. Opens. Was right there with Brooks a couple years ago in the U.S. Open. Played well this year at the U.S. Open at Torrey, and we know the length's there. So Matty Wolfe, man, that might be knocking on the door of a victory. And then Cam Smith is the last guy I want to touch on above 10K. Just love his short game here. And if there is that Augusta crossover, we've seen him play really, really well in the Masters before. So I like the way his game sets up for this golf course. Plenty of room off the tee here. Not really a huge concern. That's what we usually want to worry about with Cam. But I love where his game is. Love the fit on this golf course.
Cannot disagree with Cam. I know he can get a little wild with off the tee from time to time. That would be my only concern there. I do appreciate what you mentioned about Tony as far as form just hadn't seemed to be there since he had that really, really great, 10 maybe 10 tournament run there last year. He seems to have dropped off. I know he won back in August, but he was really solid there for many weeks and then dropped off mid-year. He came back and had a win at the end of the year, but like you said, his form in there. I'm really excited to talk about the 9K range, Joe. P. Reed, Ortiz, defending champion, Wise, who you've been dropping here recently. Taylor Gooch seems to play pretty well in tournaments where long irons matter and bogey avoidance matter. Joaquin Needham showed some signs of life last week. Adam Scott, you never know what you're going to get with him anymore. And really, this is the guy that, for whatever reason, I know he missed the cut last week, a couple of 71s. Who knows about non-major events, but this golf course, T5 last year, let's be honest, Joe, this is a Brooks Koepka style track. And you're getting a huge discount too, Joe. Yeah. Huge discount.
Yeah, and he also had a little input on this design with Tom Doak. So I mean, there's kind of that thread there, that connection, and it kind of makes you feel like you might be a little more up for this one. You mentioned T5 here last year. We know his record on tougher golf courses, so this is one where we might want to give Brooks a look. I'm still a little skittish in non-majors. You can also argue that last year he's trying to gear up for the Masters at that point. This event was the week before the Masters, so how far do we want to look into that? If I'm going this 9K range, which I will be this week, AP, I'm looking at Taylor Gooch and Aaron Wise, two guys that you named, two guys that I was heavily invested in last week, two guys that I really like again this week. Love the form, love the fit. Both these guys can handle tough golf courses. They both played well here last year. Gooch had a fourth. Aaron Wise had a T11. Both coming in with excellent form. Gooch, over his last four, has finished inside the top 11 in each start with a couple of top fives there. We know what type of run Wise has been on. So, I think if, there's something to be said as you move down the salary scale, depending on your comfortability with those guys, there's something to be said with just starting your lineups right here in this 9K range and going really solid, really balanced. Yeah, we'd like to get up to the top of the board, but your lineups are only as good as the weakest golfer in it. So, sometimes you want to just, start down here in the 9Ks and go with more of a balanced build. That might be something I'll consider this week, especially because I do like those two guys so much.
I'm just not sold on that Wise play yet, Joe, as far as because he's broke my heart for so many years. It seemed like, we were waiting for him to just take off and for a few years now. And just now it's just starting to look like he's taking that step forward, though.
Yeah, he is. Made a putter change, Andrew. I think that's made a huge difference. You start looking at his swing season results. Even stretching back into to last year, we saw him play well in a couple of big events. Saw him play well at the Wells Fargo. Saw him play well at the PGA Championship. And then you look at the swing season, T26 at the Sanderson, T8, T5, T15 last week. Just really like the form. He's gaining strokes in every area of the game. So I hear you, man. It's kind of tough to trust. But at the same time, this is a talented kid, former NCAA champ, won on the PGA Tour very young, and seems like he's kind of got things sorted out here, ready to get back to competing to win tournaments. So I really like Aaron Wise this week.
Yeah, you threw him out last week. Start off strong. So moving on the 8K range, which there's a name here that's going to be, I feel like, very highly owned. Haven't seen any ownership numbers yet, but Russell Henley at the top there at 8,900, followed by Kokrak, which form has been just not very good probably since the U.S. Open last year. Leishman, Bezenhunt, McNeely, Power, Tringale, Lowry, Griffin, Max Homa. I would argue the 8K Max Homa not only has better value, but I would actually pick him over Russell Henley, who's $900 more. And Max Homa's shown that he can win. So I love Max Homa in this spot at 8K, Bogey Awards type of golf course.
Yeah, man. We're talking about, what golf courses have we tossed out there? Tougher tracks. And that's where Max Homa's really played his best golf. We saw him win earlier in the swing season at Silverado. Not necessarily a tough track, but he also has a win at Riviera. Earlier this year, has a win at Quail Hollow. So, this guy can handle tough golf courses. And as you mentioned at 8K, I like that price tag. Mad McNeely, as we dig into the 8Ks, is a guy that we like. This golf course is a little bit longer than we normally like to target, but he ended up making a really nice charge over the weekend down in Mayakoba. Had a strong finish, and he did have a T20 on this golf course last year. So, Mav's a guy we like to play. This 8,500 price tag is a little bit higher than maybe we'd like to see him in this field, but I certainly think you can take a shot there. You mentioned Russell Henley. Be careful, guys. Russell Henley's going to pop from a course history perspective, but all those results weren't at this golf course. So kind of be careful when you're researching Russell Henley there. Seamus Power, I still kind of like the way he's playing golf. Same can be said Cameron Tringale. These are guys that you worry about actually winning golf tournaments. But, as far as DFS and guys that can play themselves into contention, both have played extremely good golf as of late. So I think you can look there at Seamus and Tringale as well as Mav in the mid-8s. And you mentioned Homa, who I like there at 8K.
Yeah, so Joe, as we get down in the 7s, it gets a little bit thinner, faster. And too many names to mention here, Joe, but a golf course that I'm going to always throw out there, or a golf tournament I'm always going to throw out there whenever par's a pretty decent score on any hole, Chez Rivera. Like Chez anyway, he's never going to give up. Like him or love, I don't know if I say I love him, but I'm going to throw him out there. Charlie Hoffman. Jason Day played pretty decent here last year. There you go, Spencer. There's your Jason Day Love. Sebastian. Other than that, Joe, I know you're going to talk about Miko Pereira. So just go through the 7K range, throw out a few names and why you like them.
Yeah, Mito, man, the wheels finally came off last week. Actually, two guys right there at that 7.7K price tag, man, that really kind of tanked me last week. HV3, who I was a big fan of heading into my Coba, had played well down there, missed the cut on the number. Had played well on this golf course last year, had a T15. So, maybe HV3 can bounce back. Still kind of hurting over that one last week. Mito, I also liked last week. Really kind of his worst round we've seen from him as a pro in the second round last week. So, you can look for a bounce back. I do think the ability's there from tee to green. And I do like this price tag, especially if his ownership's going to be down now that, he's got a couple of substandard starts under his belt. I think we can look at him in GPPs at 7.7. If that ownership's going to be hurt by those recent results. Glad you mentioned J-Day. I was going to for Spencer. So you got that shout out taken care of. Man, there's no course history. And the form's not amazing, but when you start talking about a grinder on a tough golf course, throwing out kind of Augusta National comps, Bay Hill comps, tough Florida courses, Ian Poulter kind of sticks out to me there at 7.3K. I think you can give him a look. Taylor Pendrith is a young up-and-comer that we saw play really well during the swing season. Never want to count him out, especially on a driver-heavy golf course. Harry Higgs has played well throughout the swing season. And he's got a great short game, which might come into play this week, as we mentioned in the intro, Andrew. So might want to give Harry Higgs a look there. That's really all I got for the 7Ks, man. I think there's a lot of ways you can go, a lot of viable plays, and it's just going to kind of come down to preference as you go through the week and go through your research.
Yeah, and 7Ks, I feel like we got a lot of inconsistent players there and a lot of players that wouldn't surprise me if they're in the top 10 at any moment. Like a Lee Westwood, he's probably good for one or two top 10s a year. But, he can miss the cut just as easily. So that's just a name there in the 7K range. Moving to the 6s, same thing here. There's some guys down here that have some opportunity. And before I get handed over to you to throw out your 6 or 10 names down here in the 6s that you always like, is this the week that we're going to throw out Molinari? Any tournament that maybe 12, 14 under or less, tougher golf courses, that might be a chance to throw Molinari out there. He's at 6,600. We know the game's there. We just don't know the current form. So that's a question I have for you, Joe. Other than that, throw a few names out here in the 6K range.
Yeah, at 6.6, Andrew, if you're going to take a shot on him, this probably isn't a bad spot. Coming off a miscut in Mexico last week. Didn't play great in his other swing season start at the Shriners. I think he made the cut there, but didn't play very well. But if you are going to kind of try to get back on the Molinari train, this might not be a bad spot. Seems to be a good course fit. Not a ton of guys for me in the 6Ks this week that I'm going to go through, AP. Luke List, I'll toss out just because he's just such a good ball striker. We know this is going to be a tough golf course. I kind of always like to lean towards him on tougher tracks. So, I would give Luke List a look there at 6.9K, even though he's extremely inconsistent. Same can be said of Russell Knox. Another heartbreaker for me last week, right there kind of with HV3 and Mito, was one of the guys that really let me down last week. Kind of puzzling to me, but, I think you can look for him to bounce back. He had a T15 on this golf course last year. And had been playing really good golf in the swing season up until last week. So, Russell Knox is worth a look. Adam Long's a guy that's on a little bit of a hot streak, has been playing well. He was a course history beast last week and another top 25 for him at Mayakoba. So can we stick with Adam Long? He had a T22, had a T11 on this golf course last year. So, I might just try to ride the hot hand there with Adam Long at 6'8". Grayson Siggs, a guy I've talked a lot about. since he came up from the KFT. And we're starting to kind of see that consistency take hold a little bit. Had a T22 last week, T33 at Bermuda. Those actually might be flip-flopped, I'm not sure. But a T22 and a T33 in his last 2 starts. Hits the ball extremely straight. So, I expect him to be really consistent, just log a lot of these like top 25, top 35 finishes throughout the season. So I love this price tag on him. I'm always going to be interested in Grayson Sigg when he's down in the mid 6s.
Yeah. So Joe, I feel like Grayson Sigg is going to be your dart player of the week. But Joe, where are you at on the dart?
Man, I can't make Sigg the heart play every week. So the dart play every week. So let me find another guy here, man. Who are you going with, AP? Who's your
my
dart
player of the week? I've already talked to him. Molinari finished tied 15th here last year.
Okay.
6.6. I could see an easily a top 10, top 20 in this field. Seemed like they had a little, probably a very similar field. I was gonna say a little stronger field last year, but probably pretty similar, Joe. Just to be honest with you, maybe a little stronger field last year. So I could definitely see him a top 10, top 20, and probably get a decent little pullback on the top 20 as far as price. I'll go ahead and throw out my heart play of the week is easily Brooks Koepka. You can give him at 30-1 right now. I mean, he wins the tournament easily. We can sit here and say that he wins 1 out of 30 tournaments he plays in. So that's a pretty good price. So
it feels like one of those, you mentioned that 30-1, man. It just feels like one of those prices where we could very, very easily be sitting here next Monday night doing the show and being like, why did we not take Brooks at 30-1? So I hear you. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm liking a Molinari top 20 play and a Brooks 30-1 play on the win. So that's my 2 plays this week, Joe. Where you at?
I want to kind of go out of left field here. I'm going to go Harry Higgs. It's my dart. Just like his short game, I think that might be of some importance this week. Mentioned Carlos Ortiz led this field in scrambling last year en route to winning, and Higgs has got a great short game. He pops up from time to time on these tough golf courses. So going Harry Higgs is my dart. My heart, man, I'm in between Aaron Wise and Taylor Gooch. I'm going Taylor Gooch. I think a win's coming at some point for this kid. We've talked constantly on this show, kind of during the time we've been doing, about how well he plays on tough golf courses. Really like his long iron game. The form's good, course history's good. Everything seems to work. He's coming in about 35-1 this week, AP. So I might get a little dab of that, but I'm going Taylor Gooch for my heart play.
I like it, Joe. Taylor Gooch, like him a lot. Played well at Sawgrass last year. Can see that again. See that this year. So, guys, if you like what you heard, hit the like button, subscribe wherever it is you're listening to. As far as guys here at the Turn and Rotoballer.com, we appreciate all the listeners and all the comments. Give us a shout out on Twitter. It's easy to find, at Joe Nicely, at Andrew Putters. Rotoballer.com, thank you for everything we do. Remember, if you're signed up for the PGA Premium or any premium package of that, use the promo code NICE when doing so. Houston Open coming up this weekend. Can't wait to see what happens. Everybody, you've listened to the Turn Fantasy Golf Podcast.
I've already hit 3 in the lake. It's gone.